Hey guys, what's up? It's RCS Knight here, and I'm here with some more fanfiction by my friend TheSakramentRose. This is actually one of the newer stories that she's come out with that we've actually been doing a collaboration on. I'm letting her take all the credit because I gave her most of the ideas, but she did the hard part, and it was mainly all the writing, which I am not good at. I hate writing. And give me a sec, I need to go close my office's door. I don't want anyone interrupting me again. And I'd like to thank Nintendo, because I don't own it, for all the amazing music that I'm allowed to play since I bought Smash Brothers for the 3DS. So let's all give a round of applause to Nintendo for allowing me to do this. So, this is Dysfunction Chapter 1. The world lay under a blanket of clouds, dark and heavy with rain, as they hovered over the now empty plains. A few creatures here and there ran about their activities. A long stretch of grass and dirt was nothing compared to the view as the sun settled over the rocky horizon, casting radiant shades of red, purple, pink, and gold into the sky as the wind blew around the leaves. September 9th, 2035 was to be a harsh one. And citizens of all towns were readying themselves for any disasters or mishaps, but they did so in fear. 20 years ago, Princess Celestia and her sister Luna had put the country in a dystopian life, and all lived in fear of the soldiers, the Flashes. They were fast, brutal, and merciless troops, pulling from Celestia's original guard to protect her after the uprising. The rebellion against the royal sisters was those 20 years ago. After this act, the sisters completely transformed Equestria into factories, offices, and troop stations, and most farmlands were used as massive prison camps. All who disobeyed the sisters and their troops were either tortured, killed, or imprisoned. Most stayed fearful of the sisters, but occasionally there were a select few who attempted to spark a new rebellion. They were always quickly exterminated. And Celestia had set into motion laws prohibiting most social interactions with others, unless buying or selling products. But there was a system that they developed to make sure their reign was secure. As soon as the child became school-aged, they were taken to either the 3 schools or the castle, where a special device was put onto their foreheads, rendering them completely obedient. And all higher education had been disbanded, so only the most basic level of learning was allowed. All the children now act like zombies, walking in perfect tandem, and no questions were ever asked. And this utopia that Celestia and Luna envisioned, complete control and no threats to their reign. But they underestimated one thing. me a sec, let me fix this. That should be better. Now, back to the story. But they underestimated one thing. The one thing Celestia created in Roosevelt that Roosevelt all of her other achievements. Her personal student. The fog grew thicker over the ground, as the clouds let loose a shower of rain, bouncing off every surface as it quickly came down harder. And all creatures and citizens sought shelter inside from the downpour. Canterlot rose in the distance, as guards stationed outside the Canterlot school, and the dim lighting outside made it almost impossible to see in the conditions. But the weather would see no victory over them, and the second patrol marched inside. At least a mile down the clean, white corridors and the winding staircases through this gigantic building, there was a class that would soon be cut short. In the white, sterilized room, in the back row of desks, sat a girl. Twilight Sparkle had an immense migraine and struggled to keep her focus. The teacher hadn't noticed it yet, but she might, and she didn't want to go see Celestia. Nobody she had ever seen go ever returned, or so it was said. There was no evidence to support these claims. Celestia had looked after Twilight her whole life. It couldn't possibly be that she was killing them. At that moment, a splitting ring sounded in her head, and she fought hard not to give in until finally the ungodly sound rang her to her knees beside the desk. Writhing and screaming, the teacher, another guard, rushed over and slipped a small red pill into her mouth, as all the other students looked on with blank faces as if they had seen nothing. Twilight recovered soon after, got to her feet, and was just returning to her seat when the words hit her like an anvil of dread. Twilight Sparkle, please see yourself to Princess Celestia in Canterlot at once. That'll be all. Her eyes widened in fear, and she knew something was off right then. She shouldn't feel fear or any other emotions. She hadn't felt this way in years, not since she had last seen Celestia. She nodded, smoothed her skirt and blouse, and walked over to the door. Received a card from the teacher. Down the white corridors and shut doors, staircase after staircase she descended, until she made it to the floor and halted, until she showed her card and walked onto the train platform. The rain crashed down harder than before, and the rolling dark clouds and deep booming thunder echoed across the land. Her hair was dripping in front of her eyes, and her suit was about to become drenched by the time the train finally arrived. As she stepped onto the white, squeaky train, she immediately noticed something wrong. The air felt closer. She sat down on the benches, folding her arms across her lap and closing her eyes. She felt tired. Something wasn't right. She had never felt tired before. She never felt tired before, and that's all she could recollect. The bumping and rhythmic vibrations of the train were lulling her into a false sense of security. And she was expecting at this time or date, she assumed, also seemingly knew all happenings in Equestria. She shifted in the seat, looking at the figure opposite her. A shadowy, cloaked figure. Their back hunched a bit, and his voice raspy, long draws of breath followed by pauses. He was asleep. Somehow this did not comfort Twilight, as the long train ride would only prove to be drawn out and dull in the first place. Rattling metal on the tracks did nothing to help until she got her senses. Only these weren't her senses, were they? A few minutes later, as it seemed the ride would not go any longer, the train was jerked to a sudden halt, throwing her forward onto the same bench and rubbing her head from the impact. As she stood up, the train door slid open. Revealing an empty platform and silence. The gray concrete and white walls of the floor were nothing new, but the red door was. The handle glistened in the light that shone on it, and the floors and walls echoed Twilight's steps as she reached for the handle, turning it to reveal another long white hallway with bright red flooring to match the door. She stepped in and immediately felt the air more close than dry. She slowly made her way down the hall, thoughts and questions running through her mind and causing her to raise her hand to her temple. Her eyes became blurry as she fell to her knees, gasping for air. What's in this air? Why am I feeling like danger is close? Wait, why do I feel threatened? Celestia made everyone safe, didn't she? She got up and kept walking. The walls seemed to close in on her. She picked up the pace, a sweat breaking on her forehead, and she reached the next door. Opening it, she slipped inside, trying to catch her breath inside the small metal room. She looked around and tried to see if it was a trick or a trap. Suddenly the door slammed shut, sealing her inside. She pounded the cold walls, panic rising in her when she felt a small rush as the elevator then steadily rose. Landing on her rear, in only seconds it stopped. The door slowly slid open to reveal yet another hallway. Twilight slowly began yet another walk down these corridors. The walls depicted pictures of Equestria before the uprising. Green grasses and trees, wildlife running free, and birds flying between trees and roots. Birds flying between trees, roots. Twilight seemed to remember these things as if it were some forgotten dream or past life. But she couldn't quite put her finger on it. And a sigh escaped her lips. She snapped out of her thoughts when she reached a large double door made out of hard, cold iron. The handles fashioned to resemble Pegasi. She raised her hand to knock, but didn't get very far. The door suddenly opened, causing Twilight to step back in alarm. Before peering inside the dark, smoke-smelling room, only a window lit the area, but she could see the desk at the back. I need to get working on my English. Twilight, come in. The voice inside sounded harsh, yet not malicious. It sounded vaguely familiar to her. She slowly stepped in, looking desperately in the darkness until she looked forward again to the desk and chair. Slowly and deliberately, the chair spun around her, revealing Celestia. clad in a black dress and a studded choker around her neck. Her skin, pale even the warm glow of the lamp. Bookcases lined the walls, and the dark green carpet contrasted well with the dark brown wood of the room. A large globe rested in the center. The ceiling depicted two large images of two alicorns, a white and a blue, circling around each other and the sun and the moon before them. The darkness at space made Twilight feel uneasy, and finally the silence was broken. Twilight, how are you? I haven't spoken with you in some time. We really should do this more often. Tea? Coffee? Anything like that? Coffee, thank you very much. Celestia nodded and turned around, pressing a small button on her right, and a small buzzing noise broke through the air. 2 coffees, and I want them moderately warm. If you burn my tongue again, I'll replace you. Now, where were we? Ah, yes. How are you liking your lessons and classmates? Yes, I am. Good. I want you to do something for me. If any of your classmates if your classmates behave strangely, please tell me. If they get headaches, start to randomly shake their head, or anything of the sort, okay? I'd hate to lose valuable citizens, especially young ones. So, same for my staff. It's hard to find good workers these days, and I'd hate to lose any. Ah, here we go. Just at that moment, a young maid had come in, bearing a tray of 2 cups of coffee. The smell rising in the air, Twilight's mouth watered at the thought of it. Celestia handed her a cup and sipped her own, smiling. You're valuable to me, Twilight, and I want you to want you to help me help them and you. If you show any signs of this, tell me, okay? Twilight sipped her drink, trying not to shake. She nodded her head, hiding her gaze and frown behind the mug. Yes, Princess. Celestia smiled and reached down, fiddling with the drawer, and finally placed the picture on the desk. Take this. This is a symbol. This symbol is a sign of the rebellion against us. We need to report or apprehend them. Okay? I doubt any will appear around our school. But just to be safe, you must know that symbol. Celestia sighed and raised herself up, stepping to the window and looked out in the rain. There are those who would try to take over Equestria, who would kill me, you, or Luna without a second thought. Do you understand what I'm saying? Twilight nodded and Celestia started to pace slowly back and forth. We have tried for 20 years to prevent another uprising, but we're losing our grip. I need someone who they trust, who might be able to slip in undetected. I was thinking. She turned and looked at Twilight with a gleam in her eye. That you might be willing. Twilight gasped and shook her head. I don't think I could. I mean, I'm not stealthy or anything. Celestia raised an eyebrow, looking Twilight over. She could see a small bead of sweat form on Princess Celestia's brow and got nervous. Stammering to find the words to say. Should I go, Princess? Celestia seemed to snap to attention at those words. She set down her cup and walked over to Twilight, hugging the girl tightly. Of course, your lessons still require you to be present. I'm sure your classmates must be worried sick. I have so enjoyed this chat, Twilight. Promise to visit me again sometime.
Bitch, the next time that Twilight's gonna visit you is gonna be the time when she has to kick your ass! How do I know this? I don't know. I'm not telling you anything. I promise, Princess. She smiled at the princess, turned around and walked through the door into the hallway. After she was sure Twilight had left, she pressed a button that was carefully hidden on her dress. A small crackling noise emanated from it. Yes, Princess? It's Twilight. I think she's awake. I want double surveillance on her, and I want at least 2 guards to escort her everywhere. Yes, Princess. She released the button and sat back down, rubbing her temple and looking down at the papers and files strewn across the left half. And she reached down to pick up one ice-white file. She looked closely at it. It was Twilight Sparkles, and Celestia sighed heavily. I knew you would wake up. I just hoped it wouldn't be so soon. Twilight was thinking the long train ride back would provide much time for that. She had so many questions, but so little answers. Who am I? What does this mean to me? She described everything I felt, but does that mean I'm awake? Whatever that means? Am I in danger now? She took a deep breath, looking around and found the white sides of the train. The tracks making some rickety sounds as before. The seat was extremely uncomfortable, and Twilight attempted to lie down. But that made it worse. There was something on the seat, stuck in a tear in the fabric. Annoyed yet curious, she dug out the object and studied it. It was a small, round thing, soft to the touch and sour-smelling. It was silver, and there were some words printed across the surface, but they were too small to make out. She looked around to see if anyone was watching, stuffed the object into her pocket, and sat down just as the train arrived at her stop. She stepped off the train, and the breeze and dying rain hit her face and whipped her hair in the wind. As she walked up the long stairs and hallways back to the dorm, the classes were over for the day. She just wanted to rest, so she threw her bag to the floor, flopped on the bed, and closed her eyes. But things were eating at her. Things that just wouldn't leave her alone. The white and gray walls seemed that they were closing in on her. The stone floor matched the wall extremely well, so that she stared at the corner and felt like as if she were in some bubble. In fact, she felt her whole life was a bubble, and she wanted out. She tossed and turned in bed, but nothing helped. Her roommates were already asleep. Quietly, she slipped on her shoes, snuck out to the door, and crept silently down the hall towards the library. If she could get into the staff section, she knew she could know more answers. The white halls and gray flooring did not help to kill her headache. But she didn't let that stop her. And her footsteps echoed quietly off the walls. The air smelled the same as usual, plastic and metal, and yet another smell became apparent as she walked. The lavatory. Fecal matter and all types of waste were draining, and it smelled much worse than if you just sat there. The white and gray doors were at least familiar, unlike the feelings that she was getting. She stayed silent, creeping as she neared her destination. She pushed open the door slowly and without a sound. Looking around to get her bearings, the room was the only one with different walls other than white. The walls were sickly green and the floor was black as coal. The shelves were lined with books, even those before the Equestrian Empire era. And they were so yellowed in places that it was a wonder they kept them. The air smelled of metal and paper, and Twilight looked around to see if she was being followed or spied on. Not a sound could be heard except her fast yet quiet breathing, and she crept towards the door labeled restricted. She took out her hairpin and fiddled with the lock. The door swung open with a silent creak, and she stepped in. Admiring the dusty books and large tomes on subjects of all kinds, large bindings and the bold lettering stood out against everything else in the room. The bland walls were the same as almost every room in the facility, gray and white, enough to make the snow look dull in comparison. As she crept for the door, she had a faint notation of hearing footsteps coming ever closer. But she brushed the thought away. She couldn't afford to give up now. She was so close. Just as she reached for the handle, a loud bang sounded, and she rushed out of the room, quickly dashing down the hall and slipping into her room, slowly and silently closing the door behind her, trying to steady her breath. The darkened space was silent, save for the quiet breathing of her roommate. As she slipped into her bed, she heard footsteps of guards outside, and several quiet orders had a guard enter her room. But before he turned on his lights, her eyes were already shut. End of Chapter 1. So guys, that was Chapter 1. That was Dysfunction Chapter 1, Wake, by my friend TheSakramentRose on FimFiction. So go check her out. She's flipping up. He or she is flipping amazing. Like some of her stories, like that I've done earlier, they were amazing. That's why I like him or her so much. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button for more weekly or maybe monthly stories. And yeah, so leave a like and a comment down below if you found this interesting, and help grow the kingdom of Sacrament. Or, well, actually no, we are Legion! We are better than Lancy! We are the Legion of Sacrament! We will not stop until we rule the world of FimFiction. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and, yeah. I'll see you guys later. Until next time, my friends.